I must express life or I will die with eternal regret. I've been doing a lot of thinking, as I usually do, but this time I've kind of figured it out. Or rather, at least I've figured out a theory right now. I'm realizing recently that even though I've had a good childhood, having both my parents being raised on traditional values and being raised as Catholic with, good morals, as well as not having anything truly tragic happen in my life yet, I know that my childhood has been pretty much really lucky. And I've been told to be grateful about that. And I am. I am grateful, but at the same time, it's hard to show that. But despite knowing this, I'm still suffering. I still feel like something inside me has been hurting for the past decade, I guess. It's been hurting, and I haven't truly confronted it until now. It's a weird thing where you don't realize how much you've been suffering until the dust settles, until you kind of slow down and really think about your life. And that's what I've been doing. So, question is, why am I suffering? What has caused me to end up being this way? I would consider me growing up as a relatively good kid, following most rules and trying to do the good as I can. I believe I mentioned in one of my previous videos that I joke around about it a lot, but I peaked in middle school. Now, even though I joke about it, there's actually a little bit of truth into that. There's a little bit of a hint of truth. And so I've been wondering what's changed. Why do I consider my middle school self to be the peak of my life? With jokes or not, like there seems to be some idea there. When I think about my childhood, it is this idea that I've always been kind of a big dreamer, but even more so than I am now. Because back then, I felt so free. Even if I was in a limited space, all things considered. I had to take the bus to get to school, so I never really had the opportunity to really hang out after class, join clubs, and my house is relatively closed off, so couldn't really invite friends over either for the most part. So that limited world led me to try to accommodate that in some form. And I believe it was that dreaming part of myself that's developed. The idea of me immersing myself into other worlds and interests and really going all out, dreaming big. I used to read a lot of Percy Jackson and be in awe of all of the stories from the Greek mythos. I used to get lost in trying to mess around with the library computers to try to make a SNES emulator work on a little USB drive. I used to try writing parody lyrics to that little song by Taylor Swift, Troubled. I used to imagine how cool it would be if I became a Pokemon trainer and traveled the world with a team that I built up. I used to be someone that was simply just curious and just did things for the sake of fun without so much worry about the world, about the logistics or whatnot, just having fun. And I think that is the key thing. I believe I lost that carefree side of myself. Even though I still exhibit, that feeling and try to make things, relatively fun and carefree, I think I lost the true feeling of being carefree without worrying so much about how to make things happen completely. So that carefree side of myself, it's been slowly being lost throughout my time growing up. And now I'm kind of trying to spend the time to really figure out why. Why did I lose that part of myself? Or at least neglected that? How did it disappear? My current thought on it is I feel it was lost from the pressures of having to grow up. At least pressures that I've kind of inherited and applied to myself. So really it's like self-pressure. It was the idea of being successful in life, trying to figure out the type of career I wanted to go into, trying to figure out the degree that was needed to get to it, and trying to figure out what job that I really wanted to do to make a living off of it. I sort of learned to try to prevent myself from failing, to try to get to that point. Even though I seem to be lazy and don't try as much, I'm still worried. I'm still worried of trying to make things work. There were two main ideals that I learned from my parents: the concept of hard work and security, both of which my parents would try to instill into me. Now, I don't blame my parents for, imparting these ideals onto me. In fact, I thank them for them. Hard work in the form of putting in the effort to build the life that you want to live, and security to ensure that you save up everything that you can and entrust God for whatever unknown doubts that you come across. I learned that these two ideals have saved my parents from countless experiences, or rather struggles, that they've gone through in life. They both came from a place that they made every effort to make sure that me and my siblings would not lack the lessons and resources to make sure those two ideals were met. Having a proper house, having a proper education, and a proper lifestyle. All of which I'm more than lucky to have, and there's, like I mentioned earlier, I can't thank them enough for it. I don't even think there really is a way to truly express my gratitude. However, on paper, these ideals, they're great. I am thankful that I have them. But at the same time, I was missing something from those two things. And like I mentioned, I don't blame them for this. This is their life experience. They did the best. They raised me. But there was one thing that was missing from those two things, or really the lessons. And it was truly being able to cope, or rather engage with my own emotions. So I noticed this recently, but what's funny is that I feel like I'm emotionally available for other people, but not for myself. I found myself hearing out and listening to, my friends and family's concerns and struggles, to analyze their problems and try to give, relatively good or hopefully good advice that comes from my perspective. However, I noticed that me doing these things is sort of subconsciously doing the thing that I wish I had, was for someone to just engage with the emotions that I've been feeling throughout all this time. All these emotions that I've been struggling with that, on the surface don't seem too big, but have compounded throughout the years and caused me to, I guess, crash out. I was just wishing for someone to truly engage with and hear out all of my feelings, all the things I've been struggling with. Like I mentioned, it was the pressure of making things happen, the fear of trying to make sure that I don't screw up, and to really understand what I truly want. And so I had all the makings of a good childhood, but mostly physically. Emotionally, I kind of lacked a little bit of that extra support. Now, does that mean my parents didn't give me love and heard out and try to comfort me? No, of course not. They've done more than plenty to try to help me out. But it's unfortunately, at least what I've noticed within these recent years, it's with the caveat that it follows their ideals. And it follows those two things I mentioned, that I'm working as hard as I can towards it, and that I am safe, I'm secure in what I'm doing. Anything else, and it would cause a lot of anxiety and doubt in if they even did their best to, or rather, did they do the correct thing to raise me. I want everyone to know, especially my parents, that I am truly thankful for everything, for all the hardships that they went through all of the sacrifices they needed to make, and there is something that I appreciate, but can get kind of excessive. I just want someone to just listen to me without any pretense, without any judgment, without any expectations. Not having that, I realize, is what was hurting me the most. However, I can't expect that from everyone. I can't expect that from my parents, and I can't expect that from my friends. I realized that I never took the time to really sit with my emotions. I would play excessive hours of video games, which it gets on the first half, it's pretty fun, and then you start to realize it's an addiction when it gets past a certain point. I would analyze random interests, get hooked on random shit, and just research for long stretches of time. And I still do that now, but getting lost in information without addressing my feelings. I get lost in long stretches of time where I would try to solve other things, like the bugs of my computer science projects, because I knew that those were solvable, but not immediately felt that maybe my emotions were solvable either. I would get lost in troubleshooting my computer science projects rather than taking the time to try to solve my own feelings. I would hide under the guise of being silent and keeping in within myself to avoid releasing my feelings, to keep them in check. All of them are mainly just cope. A safety mechanism for me to suppress my feelings, my emotions. They seem to keep me stuck, when in reality it was what I was avoiding that caused these copes to begin with, for me to use them as too much of a crutch. That was when I realized the biggest sin I've committed is the fact that I never sat down and truly address all of these emotions for myself, to truly figure out what I really, really want and to stick to it, to really follow what my instincts are telling me. As I mentioned before, I wish someone was there to tell me the exact solution to it all. Waiting for someone to give me the inspiration to finally change myself. Waiting for the perfect moment where I will become someone worthy of being heard. Waiting for the validation that my feelings were true. And so, in sitting and processing the emotions I've been feeling, to really giving myself the time to be still and to hear myself out, I realize my path in life is slowly revealing itself. Rather, it's being unraveled before me. So I try to follow what I truly value and to use the emotions to try to attempt to guide me towards something. And so that's what I must do. I must express life, my life, or I will die with eternal regret. Not for success, not for security, but for my own sake. I must express the life I have been granted. Because if I don't, I will continue to merely just survive. Knowing I refuse to take care of myself, knowing I will die with the regret of never listening to my own needs, knowing I chose to forget the big dreams, the carefree childhood, knowing I chose to forget about what it was like being so carefree, knowing that I will abandon my childhood self. So what's funny enough is making these videos is sort of a cathartic thing for me. Similar to just journaling. Putting my thoughts, emotions, expression into words, I'm learning a lot more about myself. And I need to keep doing that. I must keep doing that. And so, this is another message for myself to really sit in silence and listen to my soul. Because everything else is noise and chaos that I need to try to work my way through. But at the end of the day, I know what's best for myself.